Welcome back to the Alpha Hour podcast, where a couple of betas try to pretend like we're alpha. Quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Fully Loaded Tobacco-Free Chew. Check out the description of this video or the show notes to get 20% off your next order. All right, gentlemen, how we doing?
What's poppin', boys?
Well, I just got back from camping, and I tripped a little bit on mushrooms. But it was only a small amount. So I guess for people that don't understand, a tripping amount is like 3.5 grams, so like 3,500 milligrams. I took 600 milligrams, and it was raining that night. I went in my tent and laid down, and just hearing raindrops. If you've never tripped before, it's like you feel the rain dropping, and you start to almost, when you look at things, the raindrops kind of move with your vision. So whenever things hit, it like moves, and then you close your eyes. And this is the first time on mushrooms that I've seen colors. So like I'd close my eyes, and every time the rain would drop, I would kind of see different colors like popping up.
And that was only on 600.
Only on 600, yeah, which is normally not enough for me to
What is
trip.
the classical microdose volume?
200 milligrams, so 0.2 grams.
Essentially 3 of those.
Yeah. So I took 3 of them. It was the first time. It was nuts.
So you weren't planning to actually trip.
No.
It was like more.
No, I was
accidental?
looking for kind of just like a boost, but not a full trip. But
So you're with a couple families, right?
yeah, a couple families. The kids went to bed, but we stayed up and drank.
Like, did you have to communicate to them that you were tripping, or were they like?
No, because
aware?
everybody was asleep.
Oh, so you're by
Because
yourself.
it started to pour really bad, so everyone was like, well, we'll call it a night, because it was about 11:30. We're like, let's just call it. And it luckily, it kept raining anyway, so luckily we did just call it. But I was laying in my tent by myself, and I was smiling the whole time too, because I could feel it and see it, the raindrops, and I legit had a smile on my face.
Were you
the whole
outside or
time.
watching the rain through the window?
No, I was just laying there with my eyes closed. And I caught myself smiling for like 30, 45 minutes. I was like, Jared, you're having a blast. By
I'm trying to
yourself.
visualize. So you're saying you could like see the raindrops, but you were just hearing them seeing them.
I was
like,
hearing them and seeing them. So every time a raindrop would hit my tent, just imagine like a bunch of, like people listen to when they go to sleep. They'll listen to like raindrops or like a thunderstorm. It was like every time beat of water would hit the tent, I kind of like saw colors, and I felt it. It was so cool.
That is wild.
It was nuts. How much it just improves your senses when you're on it and tripping.
That's so crazy.
It is. And I felt perfectly. That's the cool thing too, is you wake up you don't have a hangover or anything like that, right? You wake up feeling fully refreshed. It's not like drinking a bunch of alcohol and getting drunk. It's a whole different kind of
There's not a lot of alcohol is awesome while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's an amazing like social lubricant.
It's a blast.
But man, when you're done with it, and that includes like any point in the day, anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a terrible come down from that drug. I mean, it might be like the worst. I've never done heroin, but I mean, that might be worse. But I would assume it's up there. And then the fact that like with mushrooms, really marijuana, you don't get that either.
No.
They're good substances for like nighttime.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. When I eat or smoke marijuana, I have to make sure I hydrate by the end of the night, right? Just because my body is dehydrated. Because I can sometimes wake up feeling like crap the next morning. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it
one day.
I feel like
one day
I would love it.
You guys would. Yeah, I think you guys would love it.
My family's out of town next weekend, so let's make a date.
Next weekend. Okay, not this weekend. Next weekend. I have to look at my schedule because I'm going to visit my siblings.
We'll make a date. That's something we can talk about
figure it
later.
out. Yeah, but what's up with you guys? Nothing new.
No.
Same old. I took you out to see my project. I want to knock out that pond here, and then we'll have some mushroom trip parties out there.
Yes.
That'd be a
Listen
blast.
to the waterfalls. Watch some fish swim around.
Have you ever done mushrooms?
No.
Okay.
I've tried the microdosing. I think like the first time I felt a little like, kind of like if you took like one hit of weed, but yeah, I've never actually tripped, which I'm a little scared to do. Like if I'm completely out of control, like the whole senses that you described, like is cool. It's like I get in those Marvel shows like Daredevil and like when he first went blind, like how everything got enhanced and like what that I feel like would be so cool, but like actually losing it and getting like freaked out is my main concern.
Well, that's why they always say it's all about set and setting. So mindset and the setting that you're in. So, for example, when I was listening to those raindrops, I've never seen colors like that when I close my eyes, because the setting I'm usually in is with a bunch of friends hanging out, and we're just giggling our asses off. So that's what I mean. You can change the kind of trip you have based on the setting that you choose. Like sometimes I'll do it where when I'm tripping, I'll do some like breath work, and that's a whole different experience. I'll do it where I sit there and meditate, and it's a whole nother experience.
How is that? Is that cool?
Oh, it's awesome.
I mean, like when I meditate, I'm almost in that half dream state anyway. That's almost like visions of itself.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about tripping on mushrooms is you get to mess with the setting in different ways. It's almost like a dial, right? Like, oh, I want this kind of trip, so I'm going to switch the dial to here.
So if you did like let's say you, and this is a little hypothetical, but let's say you did those 600 milligrams ballpark of mushrooms and like just went about your day, you think it'd be a significantly different experience?
Probably, yeah. Like I wouldn't go drive a car, but it would definitely be a different experience for sure. It's funny though, because the next day the next evening I took 800 milligrams because I wanted to get that feeling again. But myself and our one friend, we both took 800 and we didn't feel what we felt the night before, which is crazy. Because our one buddy, when we took it the first night, the 600 milligrams, him and I, when it really started to rain, it kicked in for us. And him and I were just like looking at each other, just giggling and having a great time. And we both talked the next morning. We were like, it was definitely starting to kick in, but the rain just started coming down so hard that everyone went to their campers and I went to my tent. Or else it would have been a lot of fun if me and him were
I did notice that with the little, because I probably gave it 4 or 5 days of the microdosing. You said, whatever, do it 5 days, take 2 off. Like that first time, I felt like there was like tangible like feelings that I was like in a state, not high, but just overall happiness level was up. But then the next day I did it, it was just like any other day.
Is there a tolerance? I mean, I'm assuming there's like any other drug.
Well, and that's why I tested it out. I wanted to do it one day with the 600 and then 800, and you must not be able to do it 2 days in a row. Now I am going to test tripping on like a 3.5 gram dose one night, and then try it again the next night just to see what happens.
Will you do that alone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do those ones alone for sure.
I mean, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're not.
Yeah, I just like chill with my dog and kind of like walk around the house, and sometimes I'll go sit on my back porch and just sit outside, and yeah, it's cool.
It is cool.
It's cool.
Can you overdose?
No, you can't overdose on it.
Yeah, like, so what happens if you took 10,000 milligrams?
You would probably have a trip that you've never had before.
Right, like if you take 10 grams of that, like what happens?
You might want to have somebody there. Some people do. They call it a heroic dose. It's like the 10 gram thing. Because I'll see people talk about it on Reddit. There's like Reddit forums called like shrooms or mushroom, like those kinds of subreddits. And some people will talk about taking heroic doses, so like 10 milligrams, and they just from what they type and about their experience, it's completely life-changing. So these people, it's not like you don't die
how so? Like what are they like? What I mean,
it just changes their whole outlook on everything. I mean, because if you think about it, it's almost opening another part of your brain that you've never accessed before, right? It's just like you can't access the part of your brain when you're drunk without drinking alcohol, right? Or marijuana. So it just literally opens another part of your brain that you've never experienced. It's pretty neat.
That is interesting.
It is. And different psychedelics do different things. Like I went and did ayahuasca, and that was a whole different experience. Like you don't take ayahuasca to have a great time.
That's a wild one. Yeah, you should tell that story because I remember that, and I don't remember all the specifics, but I just remember thinking like, what the hell? Like,
did you say like taps into memories that like were deep and covered
like when
up?
I was 7 years old, I had an experience.
Start from the beginning because this is actually wildly interesting because it's a church.
Yeah. So that's how they get away with. That's how it's legal. Is they call it a church, and this is the ayahuasca is their sacrament. So you have a couple things. You have to trip on ayahuasca, you need 2 things. You need the ayahuasca root and something called the chacruna leaf. So the ayahuasca root is what actually has the DMT in it. So that's what you're actually tripping on. So if someone just made a brew out of the ayahuasca root and drank it, they wouldn't trip because your I don't know whatever
metabolize it.
Yeah, you don't metabolize it properly. So you actually need the chacruna leaf to almost tell your body, like, hey, metabolize this DMT that's in the chacruna leaf. So they brew them both together, and there's different methods of brewing these this ayahuasca brew. So there's a lot of Native Americans that do it different ways. See, I went to a place in Florida, and it's considered a church, and it's pretty nuts. The one day I did it, I didn't take enough because I had a good experience. Like, I had an experience of me playing with my niece, like, and it was just happy.
Are you like not in your head? Like, do you know where you're at?
I mean, you can bring yourself back to reality and know where you're at if you really want to. But that's what they say, is to kind of let yourself go, because if you fight it, that's when, you know, you either miss the opportunity to feel the real trip or get whatever you're trying to get out of the ayahuasca.
So
they say to let
are you
go.
sleeping? This is a dream, or
No, I'm awake. So when I
is it almost like being hypnotized, where you're just kind of like sitting there? Is anyone watching you?
Oh yeah, there's people that are watching you just to make sure everybody's safe. But that time I did it outside, so they took us under. It was outside in Florida. We laid on it was like sand, and they gave us all like beach towels or whatever. And
so wild.
there's probably 25 people in this group that were tripping. But yeah, I just closed my eyes, and you have to let it go. Like you said, you're a control freak.
Oh.
It would be, so that's how I was the first night that I did it, and I didn't really feel anything because I didn't let go.
Gotcha.
But the second time I did it, I did let go, and that's when it was just pure happiness. Like I said, my little niece came into the picture, and we were just playing and just having a blast. And after each ceremony, you get together with a group and one of the people that work there, and you kind of talk about your experience. And I told them how happy mine was, and the lady was like, "Oh, you didn't take enough."
Gotcha.
So
They want you to go to dark places and deal with things?
yes. So the third night, that's when I took.
So you do it 3 nights in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you do it. You get there on a Friday. You do it on Friday evening, and then Saturday they have a day session, which is the one where I saw my niece and we were playing, and then they do a Saturday evening. And then you leave Sunday.
How long does, when you drink the tea, how long does it last?
Yeah, so I timed it. It was about, I'd say 2 hours, 3 hours, because you started at 7, and then at 10 o'clock they actually offer you another cup if you want it. So some people want to keep going. Yeah, you can re-up.
It's almost like, okay.
So
It's like going to a movie.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of like a normal high experience from marijuana. That's all I know to experience. If I get high, usually it will tend to come back like 2 hours later or so. So you're just kind of like more or less like, all right, here we go. And then you drink it. And is it like more instantaneous, or does it take?
No, it takes about, I'd say 20 to 30 minutes to kick in. And then it starts to go up. So like,
Are you hanging out with these other people and socializing, and then you all lay down in your towels and just kind of like
so everyone
go to your happy
and there's
places?
a couple different spots they have, but I did it in an area that's like a circular building, and there's mats on the outside of the whole building. I'd say there's probably 30 people in there. So, and what freaked me out is the first night that I took it, I laid down, or I sat down on my mat, and you know, you get to know the people that are right next to you, because they're probably from like me to Sean, maybe a little
How many
bit closer.
people are there?
Well, total maybe like 100,
Holy
120.
shit, okay.
But they're in different areas. So there's probably maybe, like I said, like maybe 30, 40 people in this circular
Okay.
building. But the first night I sat down, and this guy that was right next to me, we like said, "Hey, how's it going?" And he told me, he said, "If you look over at me," he's like, "just don't get freaked out." And I was like, I thought to my head, what does that even mean? Because everyone has different experiences.
Right.
Like my first night, because I was resisting so much on the ayahuasca, I was still coherent of what was going on. So I was paying attention to what was going on around the room. And I remember they lower the lights and they play this Native American type music. It's really cool. It actually, you feel it when you're tripping too. But I remember being in it, and I kind of opened my eyes, and I saw people almost walking around like they were zombies. Some people were crawling on the floor. I heard people crying, moaning like they were having sex, laughing their heads off, just every emotion you
Did
can
anyone
think
do
of.
anything real wild?
So when people do, some people have a rough time. So what they do is there's people that are in there watching you. They're in the center, and they're all looking out. And when you do have a bad trip, the person notices that they see it, and what they do is they bring people from the outside with like little stretcher type thing, like a sheet stretcher. They'll lay you on it, and they'll pick you up, and they'll take you to this area that's called the grounding area. And basically what it is it's just like a little field, if you will, mini field, like a small yard. with a fire pit in the middle, and they'll lay you down around the fire pit, and there's people there that will sit there and talk you through things to help you get through whatever rough experience you're having. Because if someone's in that area that I was at, that circular building, if they're having a really bad trip, then that can kind of ruin other people's experiences. Like I went with my sister, and they intentionally put her in another area, because if I hear my sister's voice, it might take me out of my trip and mess with me. Same thing with if someone did it with their significant other. Like, naturally, you're going to want to, like, help them, or you're going to feel bad, right? Which could mess with your trip. So if you go with somebody, they intentionally move you away just in case any of that happens.
That's so fascinating.
It is.
So did everyone... I'm assuming, like anything, you feel more comfortable as you get more experience doing it. Did everyone, like, know it was, like, your first time, and then, like, as you learn to let go and, like, become more comfortable with the surrounding? Because this guy's like, hey, if he was, like, already out, I do weird shit when I get...
he's like, don't freak out.
Don't be freaked out. He's obviously been there a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you find that most people were going back for this little retreat?
I would say it was probably... I'd probably say 60% of people were new, 40% had come back.
Would you do it again?
I would do it again.
Would you do it, like, do you think you need to, or is it like...
I mean, I don't think it's I think it's one of those things that maybe you do every year or every 2 years. It's not one of those things that you want to just do constantly, like you could maybe drinking or even eating mushrooms. I think it's one of those things where, because you need time to away from the ayahuasca, or to kind of, I don't know, think about what the experience you had and how it integrates into your life. Because that's another thing, is they wanted you to do integrations. They actually have follow-up calls every week, a couple every week, this ayahuasca place. And you get on there and you kind of talk about kind of what you've been thinking about, because things still come up after you're away from it as well. Even weeks,
well, you probably
months
start to
after.
think about what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just crazy. Like I said, it's like it opens up a part of your brain that you cannot access without that. And it's crazy because there's a lot of even plants outside that have DMT in them, where you can trip. But like I said, you need that. They had the chacruna leaf to kind of tell your body how to metabolize that DMT, because leaves out there could have DMT and you could eat it and you won't feel anything. But so it's crazy to think how people even figured out that this is possible, right?
It's wild.
It is.
There's a toad or something that has it too, right?
Yeah, I think they Mike Tyson did it or something like that.
Yeah, it is wild, and like just from a pharmacology standpoint, like, but that's everything. Like,
well, it's just like the marijuana plant, or you could do anything.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, basically anything.
There's so many plants around, and somebody decided one day, like, well, you probably had to be like, let's smoke them all and see if anything happens. Like, you're just rolling up.
It's actually a great question. Like, were our ancestors just smoking and drinking anything they could find? I mean, they're making this tea. They're doing this.
They're testing so much.
Well, it was probably like somebody tried it and had X effect.
Mm-hmm.
And then it could have been a chance thing where they drank this. What's it called? Chicano leaf?
Oh, the chacruna leaf.
Somebody happened to have that, and then they did that, and then like they're like, "Oh my god, this thing made me like completely wacky." And then they're like, "Well, Jimmy over here did it, and he didn't get it." And they're like, well, "What'd you do?" "Well, I did have a cup of Chicano leaf." And then you're like, "Oh, let's try that." Like, it's trial and error.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they're mixing
millions of years of that.
Could you imagine how many people they're probably poisoning themselves constantly, and half were just dropping dead?
Well, like the life expectancy you figure was probably 28.
That's true.
So it might have been lower.
They probably took all the old people and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have them." That was their trials.
Yeah. Hey, Grandpa, you're gonna trip tonight. Although Grandpa was probably like 39 years old.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Kids, they just had kids at 12.
Well, yeah, and that's why a lot of like my mom is one of 7 girls. It's because the infant death rate used to be so high that they almost had to have so many kids because they were naturally gonna lose a couple.
You're fighting, right? Yeah. At that point, yeah, and that isn't like a old fix. Like, this happened in the last 100 years,
mm-hmm.
and it's improved. Oh, USA has like one of the lower ones. I think we're like in the 20s.
Are we?
For infant mortality.
I was looking that up today or the other day, but I didn't get any actual stats.
We're not great,
no.
Which is weird, but I don't know why that is.
I wonder what they factored into that. It seems really high. Like actually going into birth, or just like at any point in the pregnancy?
No, 20s as far as ranking in the world, not percentage of children dying.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
like,
that would be bad. 20% of the
Yeah,
kids.
that would be really
that
bad.
would be
No. Ranking in the
Makes more
in
sense.
the world. How many countries are there?
A lot.
175.
I was thinking like 216 for some reason, but I have no idea why.
Well, this is where we need
I
somebody to
couldn't
actually
even-
check
Yeah.
us on our bullshit
We had a
here.
stat guy back there on a computer looking up our weird.
Did
things.
you vomit and shit?
Yeah, I didn't shit, but I vomited. That was one
Are
thing
they
I was.
both common?
I didn't see anybody shit when I was there, but sometimes it happens. I think it's one of those things where it does happen, and
But
when
you-
you hear
you-
about it,
you
then it gets
puked.
kind of blown out of proportion. Yeah, you almost have to puke to start tripping. So you almost have to purge. I would recommend for sure purging. Yeah, because okay, so here's when
Why?
when I really started to trip the one night, and I'm very I was self-conscious in there, so I was resisting it. And when I eventually said screw it, because I knew these people were watching us, so that kind of got in my head. And finally I was like, screw it, I'm gonna puke. So they give you each your own kind of puke bucket. So they say get on your all fours, or get on all fours so that you can puke and let it all out. So I get on all fours and I start puking into this bucket, and all of a sudden I was concerned in the back of my head. I said, Jared, you're puking so much, this is gonna fill this whole bucket up, so you need to like slow down. As I had that thought, the bottom of the puke bucket dropped out, and all I saw was space and stars and planets. Almost like it's saying, hey, Jared, you're never going to fill this bucket up. Because honestly, in reality, I wasn't that close to filling it up. But in my head, I
That'd
was.
be a pretty small bucket.
Yeah, well, it was. No, I don't know. It was just a normal, like, bathroom garbage
You'd have
can.
a hard time filling that
But
whole
yeah, I
thing.
did not fill it up. But in my mind, I was like, you're gonna fill it up. But yeah, once the bottom dropped out, I was like, yes, and then just puke fest 2020.
Well, they told you to get down on all fours. Did you feel like you were about to get filled up?
No. I was way too out of it.
Yeah.
You know
At
what?
some
That'd
point.
actually be a playground for a molester.
What
You know
do
what
you
I mean?
mean?
Bunch
The
of
whole
guys-
thing is so fascinating, though.
No, it's-
like I would be. How my mind works, I feel like I would be so curious on what everyone else is doing the entire time. To like, that's why I think it would take 2-3 times to feel more comfortable. And like, all right, I don't care what anyone else is doing. Let me like go to this other place or whatever. But I'd be like, what is happening? What are these weirdos doing? What are these sounds? That'd be really tough,
So-
I think, for me to let go.
Once I started to come down from, because I just took one drink that last night where I really tripped. I intentionally didn't take a second to drink because I wanted to walk around, because they'll let you walk around the compound or whatever. So that's what I did, because I was like, I wonder what everyone else is doing. So I didn't take it. And around it, I'd say 10:30, 11 o'clock, I was comfortable enough to get up and walk around. And I did walk around, and I saw, like, I knew where my sister was sitting, so I intentionally didn't look at her because I didn't want to see anything, because I didn't want that to mess with me or potentially mess with her. But yeah, I was walking around, and some people were having good experiences, some bad. And then I went to that, they call it the grounding area, where people are freaking out. They put them by that fire that I was telling you. They call it the grounding area. And it was kind of cool because I went out and I sat and just watched. And you see some people by themselves kind of going through it. You see other people laying there with some
Can
of
you
the
go into that a
workers.
little bit more, like going through it? Are they like talking out loud? Or
Yeah.
Is their body just doing weird things that
both.
not natural movements?
Both. And like that, both and or the other, right? It's so they're doing all kinds of things. So yeah, you can tell, like, some people you could tell they're really going through it. Some people are laying there super peaceful. And what was cool about the place is they had enough volunteers and people working there to where if someone was laying there and they needed help, there was like 1 or 2 people sitting there and just kind of like holding them and talking them through it. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because it almost felt like it was like almost like medicine, right? And it was like, oh, these people are kind of like helping these individuals go through it. It's like kind of healing. Like I said, yeah, I have goosebumps just thinking about it, because it was a really cool experience to just visualize.
Is this like a vacation? So you said you do this for a couple hours at night. It's like the next day you get up. Is it like a vacation where you're all like laying out and like hanging out, or what do you do all day?
They have different
before?
things. Like some of them have like stretching classes, yoga classes, all kinds of stuff like that you can choose to do in between tripping sessions or whatever. So, and like the daytime tripping on Saturday was optional. So not everybody signed up for that, but I did. So that's why I did it three times. So the people that didn't either went and did some activities that are.
What's the cost?
Then it was like, I think I paid $1,300. So that was room and board. My sister and I got
reasonable.
Yeah, we got our own a place with like 2 beds in it, like a little small building. So we actually paid extra, paid $1,300. I think the price increased.
What's to stop anyone from just like growing this plant and like harvesting it themselves?
I don't think it's as easy as you think it is, and there's certain ways to brew it. Like I said, different tribes brew it a little bit differently.
They probably have a knowledge that, I mean, but it's like growing marijuana. I'm sure, like there's an art to that.
Mm-hmm.
I know, that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
like,
so the one person, the guy that brews it for the place that I went to, he's from the Amazon. So he got taught how to brew it from his ancestors and things like that. So,
because I mean, it seems super unique. Because paying $1,300, like you pay $1,300, you get a couple pounds of marijuana. I think I don't even know the price of that, but if you're making like going to a special place down in Florida, obviously it's not that accessible.
Well, that's because of the legality too. Yeah. So, I mean, the only reason
in Florida is the only place that can have it be like a church and like have this whole setup.
So that's where they originally were. So you can technically get.
You could do that here.
Right. But,
should you choose to.
Yeah, someone could create a retreat here if they want to. Like, tribes still do it in the United States, but the reason they can get away with it is because just like this place I went, it's
so it's technically an illegal substance. Like,
oh, yes.
Yeah. Would anyone like know what it is if you had it? Or would they just be like, oh, it looks like mulch?
They probably wouldn't know, actually. I doubt they would know. Because I don't think it's as widespread. You know, because honestly, it's not
like you're looking at weed and you can smell it and you see it. You know what it is? Like, yeah, I don't think
they would have I don't think they'd have any clue. But it's like, it's real grainy, like.
Did they do everything for you? Because that's the thing, I've never like seen it. Have you like seen it just like in a bin sitting around, or is it like no, they're bringing you a cup of tea and they're giving you a little plate with that one leaf that you're supposed to?
No, you walk up to him and it's basically like a shot glass. Think of a shot glass, and they fill it halfway would be considered like 1 dose, and all the way would be considered 2 doses. But no, you walk up there and he pours it into this. They do a whole ceremony thing where they can do some chanting.
They gotta hold up the whole religion thing.
Yeah,
they're like, hey guys, like,
yeah.
The only reason we're allowed to do this is because we keep saying it's religious, so you have to sit here for the whole hymn and everything else.
We gotta really play this up. Yeah, honestly, because it's federally illegal. That's why. I think they've because they've had an ongoing thing with, I don't know, the DEA or whatever it is, but they've been able to get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, that is a weird one. Everything the federal government, what they choose to make illegal.
It's like, hey, this is a legal drug, but if you're doing it for religious purposes, you're good. So it's like, well, you have to do anything you want to do that's illegal. You just create a church or religion.
It's actually a great point.
No, my religion, if somebody sins based on what we consider sin, we're allowed to kill them.
And we grow the coca plant. We just do a crap load of cocaine. Sorry, that's just part of my religion.
Exactly.
And they're probably tax free, which is also another big benefit. Huge benefit.
Yeah.
So these cats rolling in $1,300 a piece for a 3-dayer, tax free.
Is it like log cabins that you stay in?
I stayed in. It was kind of like not a log cabin, but it was exposed wood, if you will. It was a small.
But they have like this whole like church and then like little.
Yeah,
something.
Some people will even stay on their mats. Like in that circle room I was in, people will like just live
for
on
3
their
days.
mats.
They're living
for 3
on
days.
that mat. That's wild.
They have outdoor showers, which is actually kind of. I'd never showered outdoor with barely any, surroundings, but it felt very free and it was awesome. I was scared at first because there was this really tall guy who had a big dick, and he got in right next to me, and he like kind of looked down. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? But
Did he say anything?
No, he didn't say anything.
That'd been sweet.
Let's
Why did you say anything?
Respect.
Thanks for checking out this podcast. Please make sure to hit that thumbs up button before you go. If you want to watch us continue the conversation, then click on this video to your left next.